The fall of Earth's story begins in the year 2157. Earth had just achieved faster-than-light travel and made first contact with alien species. Humanity was excited to join the galactic community. The aliens called themselves the Dominion, a vast empire that ruled over dozens of worlds. At first, the Dominion seemed friendly. They offered Earth advanced technology and promised to share knowledge. Human leaders like President Kane and General Ross welcomed the aliens with open arms. The Dominion's leader, Commander Vax, spoke of peace and unity between species. But it was all a lie. Within months, Dominion ships surrounded Earth. Their true nature was revealed. They were slavers who had conquered many worlds before. The aliens had superior weapons and shields that made human technology look like toys. Earth's military, led by Colonel Blake and Admiral Stone, fought bravely but was crushed in days. The invasion was swift and brutal. Major cities like New York, London, and Tokyo fell within hours. Millions of humans died in the initial assault. The lucky ones were killed quickly. The unlucky ones were captured alive. Commander Vex announced Earth's new reality over global broadcasts. Humans were now property of the Dominion. They would serve as laborers on alien worlds, building monuments and mining precious metals. Any resistance would be met with death. The story follows several characters during this dark time. Tom Miller, a factory worker from Detroit who watched his family get taken away. Dr. Lisa Park, a scientist who worked on Earth's defense systems. Captain Mike Torres, a soldier who survived the initial invasion. Anna Cross, a teacher who tried to protect her students. These humans, along with millions of others, were loaded onto massive alien transport ships. The ships were dark, cramped, and filled with the smell of fear. Families were separated. Children cried for parents they would never see again. The journey took weeks. Many humans died from sickness and despair during the trip. The aliens gave them just enough food and water to survive. They treated humans like cattle being moved to market. When the ships finally arrived at their destination, the humans saw their new prison, a mining world called Kepler for 4-B. The planet was mostly rock and metal, with a thin atmosphere that burned human lungs. Giant alien structures covered the surface, and the sky was always red from the twin suns. The humans were divided into work groups. Some went to the deep mines to dig for rare crystals. Others worked in factories building alien machines. The strongest were sent to construction sites to build temples for the Dominion's rulers. Life was harsh beyond imagination. Humans worked 16 hours a day with little rest. The alien guards carried energy weapons and were quick to use them. Food was a thin soup that barely kept people alive. Many humans gave up hope and died within the first year. But some refused to break. Tom Miller became a leader among the miners. He secretly organized small acts of resistance, slowing down work, hiding tools, sharing food with the weak. Dr. Lisa Park used her scientific knowledge to study the alien technology. Looking for weaknesses, Captain Torres trained other humans in basic fighting skills during their few rest periods. Anna Cross became something even more important. She kept hope alive. She told stories of Earth to children who were forgetting their home world. She reminded everyone that they were human, not animals. The aliens thought they had won completely. They had done this to dozens of species before. Most conquered races gave up within a generation and accepted their fate as slaves. But they didn't understand humans. They didn't know about human history, how people had survived wars, plagues, and disasters. They didn't know about human stubbornness and the refusal to stay down when knocked down. They didn't know that humans had a saying, "Never again." As the first year of slavery ended, something began to change in the camps. Humans started to whisper to each other in the darkness. They shared information about guard rotations and alien weaknesses. They began to plan. The aliens noticed some problems: work efficiency going down, small equipment failures, minor accidents. But they thought it was just broken human spirits giving up. They were wrong. In the deepest mines and darkest factories, a resistance was being born. Led by people like Tom, Lisa, Mike, and Anna, humans began to remember who they were. They remembered that they came from a world where the weak had overcome the strong many times before. The Dominion had made Earth's greatest mistake. They had underestimated humanity. Part 1 ends with Tom Miller finding something in the deepest part of the mine. Alien technology that the Dominion thought was safely buried. As he held the strange device in his hands, he smiled for the first time in a year. The revolution was about to begin. The spark ignitest years had passed since Earth's fall. The device Tom found was a communication relay, something the Dominion used to coordinate their vast empire. Dr. Lisa Park worked for months to understand how it worked. She discovered it could reach other slave worlds across the galaxy. The resistance had grown slowly but steadily. What started as whispered conversations became organized cells. Each group knew only a few others for security. Tom led the miners, Mike organized the factory workers, and ran intelligence gathering. And Lisa handled technology. The breakthrough came when Lisa cracked the alien communication codes. For the first time since the invasion, humans could talk to the outside universe. What they found changed everything. Earth was not the first world to fall to the Dominion. There were dozens of others. The bird-like Avis from the Centauri system, the aquatic Hydros from distant Vega, and the insect-like swarm from the Proxima colonies. All had been enslaved, their populations scattered across different worlds. But unlike other species, humans had never stopped fighting. Most alien races accepted their fate after a few years. They adapted to slavery and forgot their old lives. The Dominion expected this pattern to continue. The first real act of rebellion happened at the crystal mines. A guard named Krell was known for his cruelty. He enjoyed hurting human workers and had killed dozens for minor mistakes. Tom's group had been planning for weeks. It happened during the shift change. Krell was alone in Tunnel 7, counting the day's crystal harvest. Tom and 5 others surrounded him. The alien reached for his energy weapon, but human hands were faster. They had made crude knives from mining tools. Krell died quickly, but his death sent shockwaves through the camp. No slave had ever killed a Dominion guard before. The aliens were furious and scared. They increased security and began random punishments. But the damage was done. Other humans had seen that the aliens could bleed and die just like anyone else. The myth of Dominion invincibility was broken. Word spread through Lisa's communication network to other slave worlds. Humans everywhere began small acts of rebellion. Work slowdowns became equipment sabotage. Accidents became coordinated strikes. Fear began to shift from the slaves to the masters. The aliens tried to crush the growing resistance. They brought in more guards and harsher punishments. They separated human leaders and moved them to different camps. They thought this would end the problem. Instead, it spread the rebellion further. Mike Torres had been moved to a weapons factory on another continent. There, he discovered something incredible. The Dominion was not as strong as they appeared. Their empire was vast but stretched thin. Most of their military was spread across dozens of worlds, keeping other species in line. More importantly, their technology had a weakness. The energy weapons and shields that seemed so powerful were based on crystals, the same crystals humans were forced to mine. Without a steady supply, Dominion technology would fail. Anacross, now in a data processing center, found even more valuable information. She learned about Dominion politics and discovered that their empire was not united. Different factions competed for power, and some aliens questioned the slavery system. The most shocking discovery came from Dr. Park. While studying captured alien equipment, she found something that changed everything. The Dominion had not invented their advanced technology. They had stolen it from a species they had enslaved centuries ago. This meant the aliens were not the superior beings they claimed to be. They were parasites who had built their empire on the backs of others. Every piece of their technology, every weapon, every ship had been created by slave labor. The resistance cells began to coordinate their activities. They started stealing weapons and equipment. They sabotaged mining operations and factory production. They spread information to other slave species about Dominion weaknesses. The aliens noticed the problems, but still didn't understand what they were facing. They had conquered so many worlds that they thought humans would eventually give up like all the others. They increased punishments and brought in more guards. But the resistance only grew stronger. The turning point came when humans on 3 different worlds launched coordinated attacks. On the same day, communication centers were destroyed, guard posts were overrun, and weapons stockpiles were raided. For the first time in Dominion history, slaves had organized across multiple star systems. Commander Vex, the alien who had conquered Earth, was recalled to the Dominion capital to explain the situation. His superiors were beginning to worry. What had started as minor disturbances was becoming a real threat to their empire. Part 2 ends with Tom Miller standing in the ruins of a guard tower, holding a stolen alien weapon. Around him, other humans were freeing prisoners and taking control of their sector. In the distance, fires burned as the rebellion spread across the mining complex. The spark had become a flame, and the flame was spreading across the stars. The fire spread the rebellion was no longer secret. Across 12 different worlds, human slaves had risen up simultaneously. The Dominion faced something they had never seen before, a coordinated revolt. Spanning multiple star systems, Commander Vex stood before the Dominion High Council, trying to explain how a primitive species had caused so much chaos. The council members were furious. Some called for the complete extermination of all humans. Others wanted to understand how the slaves had organized so effectively. Impossible, said Counselor Drax, the Dominion's military leader. No slave species has ever coordinated attacks across different worlds. They lack the intelligence and technology, but the evidence was clear. Human rebels had captured weapons, freed prisoners, and taken control of entire facility sectors. More troubling, they had somehow convinced other slave species to join them. The bird-like avis and aquatic hydros were now fighting alongside humans. The Dominion's response was swift and brutal. They sent battle fleets to each rebel world with orders to crush the uprising. Completely, the aliens had overwhelming firepower. Plasma cannons, energy shields, and atmospheric bombers that could destroy entire cities. But humans had learned from their initial defeat. They no longer fought the aliens directly. Instead, they used guerrilla tactics learned from Earth's military history. They struck quickly at weak points, then disappeared into tunnels and hidden bases. Tom Miller had become a legend among the rebels. He led raids against alien supply convoys and rescued captured humans. His knowledge of the mining tunnels made him nearly impossible to catch. The aliens put a huge bounty on his head, but he always stayed one step ahead. Dr. Lisa Park made an even more important discovery. While analyzing stolen alien technology, she found the location of the Dominion's main research facility. This was where they developed new weapons and studied conquered species. More importantly, it was where they kept the master control codes for their entire empire. The facility was on Dominion Prime, the aliens' homeworld. It was the most heavily defended location in their empire, surrounded by space stations and patrol fleets. No slave had ever even seen it, much less attacked it. Mike Torres had escaped from the weapons factory and was now leading rebel forces on 3 different worlds. He had trained thousands of humans in combat tactics and helped them build improvised weapons. His forces were becoming a real army. Anna Cross had become the rebellion's voice. She broadcast messages to slave species throughout the galaxy, telling them that freedom was possible. Her words reached millions of enslaved beings and inspired them to join the fight. The Dominion tried to stop the rebellion by cutting off communication between worlds. They destroyed relay stations and jammed alien frequencies. But Lisa Park had learned how to build human communication devices using Dominion technology. The rebels stayed connected, The real breakthrough came when the rebels discovered the Dominion's greatest secret. Anna Cross had been analyzing alien historical records when she found something shocking. The Dominion had not always been slavers. Thousands of years ago, they had been slaves themselves. An ancient species called the Builders had once ruled the galaxy. They had enslaved the Dominion and forced them to construct massive projects across different worlds. But the Builders had eventually died out, leaving their technology behind. The Dominion had taken that technology and used it to build their own empire. This revelation changed everything. The Dominion's advanced weapons and ships were not their own creation. They were using stolen technology, just like parasites. This explained why their empire was so dependent on slave labor. They had never learned to innovate on their own. The rebels used this information to turn other alien species against the Dominion. Many of the Empire's client races had been forced to provide tribute and resources. When they learned the truth about Dominion technology, some began to question their loyalty. The rebellion's greatest victory came at the Battle of Kepler Station. This was a major Dominion military base that controlled 3 star systems. Mike Torres led a combined force of humans and alien rebels in a surprise attack. The battle lasted 3 days. The rebels used captured Dominion ships and weapons against their former masters. For the first time, the aliens faced enemies who understood their technology and tactics. The space station fell, giving the rebels their first major stronghold. News of the victory spread across the galaxy. Other slave species began their own rebellions. The Dominion suddenly faced uprisings on dozens of worlds. Their empire, which had seemed unshakable, was cracking under pressure. But the aliens were not finished. Counselor Drax convinced the High Council to use their ultimate weapon, planet killers. These massive ships could destroy entire worlds from orbit. If they could not control the slaves, they would eliminate them completely. Part 3 ends with Tom Miller receiving an urgent message from Lisa Park. She had intercepted Dominion communications about the planet killer fleet. The aliens were planning to destroy every world with active rebellions, including Earth. The rebels had won battles, but now they faced total extinction. The final war was about to begin. The final war Dominion planet killer fleet was massive, 50 ships capable of destroying entire worlds. They moved toward rebel systems with cold efficiency. The aliens had decided that if they could not control their slaves, they would eliminate them completely. Tom Miller stood in the command center of Kepler Station, watching the approaching fleet on stolen alien monitors. Around him, rebel leaders from a dozen species planned their desperate defense. They had weapons and ships now, but nothing that could stop planet killers. "We have maybe a week before they reach the first rebel world," Dr. Lisa Park said, studying the tactical displays. "After that, they'll destroy one system after another until we're all dead." The rebels had 3 options, all of them terrible. They could scatter and hide, abandoning the organized rebellion. They could fight and die defending their worlds. Or they could attempt something impossible, a direct attack on Dominion Prime itself. Mike Torres supported the third option. "If we're going to die anyway, let's make it count. Hit them where they live. Show the galaxy that the Dominion can bleed." Anna Cross had spent days broadcasting to slave species throughout the Empire. Her message was simple. This was the last chance for freedom. Either they fought now, or they would be slaves forever. The response was incredible. Species that had been conquered centuries ago began to rise up. The insect-like swarm overran their guard posts. The crystalline builders' descendants emerged from hidden colonies. Even some of the Dominion's client races turned against their masters. But rebellion was not enough. The planet killers would destroy everything unless they could be stopped. Lisa Park had been studying the massive ships and found a weakness. They were powered by the same crystal technology that ran all the Dominion equipment. If the rebels could destroy the crystal mines, the fleet would lose power. The problem was that the most important mines were on Dominion Prime itself. The aliens' homeworld was the source of the rare crystals that powered their entire empire. it was also the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. Tom Miller volunteered to lead the impossible mission. He would take a small team of humans and alien rebels to Dominion Prime, while the planet killer fleet was moving toward rebel worlds. The capital would have reduced defenses. The plan was insane. They would have to steal a Dominion ship, travel through heavily patrolled space, land on an alien world, and destroy mining facilities that had been operating for thousands of years. The chances of success were almost zero, but humans had always been good at impossible things. The team included Tom Miller, Dr. Lisa Park, Mike Torres, Anna Cross, and 50 volunteers from different species. They used a captured Dominion cruiser and false identification codes to reach the home system. Dominion Prime was a dark world with purple skies and floating cities. The crystal mines went deep into the planet's core, protected by energy shields and automated defenses. The rebels would have to fight their way through miles of tunnels while avoiding the planet's military forces. The infiltration began at night, during a storm that interfered with alien sensors. The rebels landed in the wilderness and made their way toward the mining complex. They had studied the facility's layout from stolen files and knew exactly where to plant their explosives. But the Dominion had suspected something. Commander Vex was waiting for them with a full battalion of guards. The aliens had learned about the mission from intercepted communications. It was a trap. The battle in the mines was brutal. Human rebels fought alien soldiers in narrow tunnels, filled with deadly machinery. The air was thick with crystal dust and energy weapon fire. Many rebels died in the first minutes of fighting. Tom Miller found himself face to face with Commander Vex in the main control room. The alien leader who had conquered Earth was wounded, but still dangerous. They fought hand to hand while explosions shook the facility around them. "You cannot win," Vex said, his weapon damaged but his claws still sharp. "We have ruled the galaxy for millennia. One primitive species cannot destroy us." Tom smiled, blood running down his face. "You're right. One species can't destroy you. But we're not alone anymore." Throughout the facility, other rebels were completing their mission. Lisa Park had hacked the mining control systems. Mike Torres had planted explosives in the power cores. Anna Cross was broadcasting live footage of the battle to the entire galaxy. The explosions began in the deepest tunnels and worked there. Way up, the crystal mines that had powered the Dominion Empire for thousands of years were collapsing. Without their energy source, the planet killer fleet would be helpless. But the rebels were trapped in the facility as it collapsed around them. Tom Miller made a final choice. He stayed behind to ensure the explosions would completely destroy the mines. As the tunnels caved in, he transmitted a message to rebel forces across the galaxy. "This is Tom Miller. The mines are destroyed. The Dominion is finished. Remember us and stay free." Part 4 ends with the crystal mines of Dominion Prime burning. In space, the planet killer fleet suddenly lost power. Their weapons go in dark. The impossible had happened. Human slaves had struck at the heart of an interstellar empire. The empire burns. The destruction of the crystal mines sent shockwaves through the Dominion Empire. Without their primary energy source, the aliens advanced. Technology began to fail. Planet killer ships drifted helplessly in space. Defense stations went dark. Even the lights on Dominion Prime flickered and died. Commander Vex survived the mine collapse, but his empire was crumbling around him. Emergency power kept some systems running, but the Dominion had built their entire civilization on crystal energy. Without it, they were just another species with primitive technology. The news of Tom Miller's sacrifice spread across rebel networks. Dr. Lisa Park, Mike Torres, and Anna Cross had escaped the facility and were broadcasting the truth to every slave world in the galaxy. The mighty Dominion was vulnerable. Their masters could be defeated. What happened next was something the aliens never expected. Instead of celebrating their victory, humans began organizing rescue missions for Dominion civilians. While alien military forces were in chaos, human rebels were saving alien children from failing life support systems. "Why are you helping us?" asked a young Dominion citizen as Mike Torres carried her from a damaged habitat. "We enslaved your people. We destroyed your world." Mike looked at the frightened alien child and thought of his own daughter, lost during Earth's invasion. "Because someone has to break the cycle," he said. "We won't become the monsters you were." This act of mercy changed everything. Other alien species saw that humans fought for freedom, not revenge. The rebellion transformed from a slave uprising into a liberation movement. Species that had remained neutral began joining the fight against the Dominion. The Dominion High Council tried to maintain control, but their empire was falling apart. Without crystal power, they could not maintain their vast fleets or communicate with distant worlds. Local commanders began surrendering rather than face rebel forces. Some aliens fought to the end. Counselor Drax gathered the remaining loyal forces and made a final stand at the Fortress of Eternity, an ancient stronghold on the edge of Dominion space. He declared that he would rather die than see his empire destroyed by inferior beings. The siege lasted for months. Rebel forces from dozens of species surrounded the fortress while Drax's forces held out with limited supplies. The Dominion leader refused all offers of surrender, believing that reinforcements would come from distant sectors. But the reinforcements never came. Across the galaxy, Dominion forces were laying down their weapons. The empire that had lasted for millennia was dissolving in a matter of months. Local governors were making peace deals with rebel forces rather than face destruction. Anna Cross led the negotiations with surrendering Dominion officials. Her broadcasts had made her famous throughout the galaxy as the voice of freedom. Many aliens trusted her to be fair in victory, remembering how she had called for mercy rather than revenge. The final battle came when Dr. Lisa Park discovered the location of the Dominion's ultimate weapon, a device that could control the minds of entire populations. It was hidden in the Fortress of Eternity, which explained why Drax was so determined to hold his position. Mike Torres led the final assault. Human soldiers fought alongside former enemies who had joined the rebellion. The battle was fierce but brief. Drax died fighting, but his death ended the last organized resistance to the new order. The mind control device was destroyed, freeing millions of beings who had been mentally enslaved by the Dominion. These included many aliens who had thought they were loyal supporters of the Empire. When their minds cleared, they realized they had been prisoners just like the other slaves. With the Dominion defeated, the galaxy faced a new challenge: what to do with freedom. Millions of former slaves needed homes. Entire civilizations had been displaced by centuries of conquest. The infrastructure of dozens of worlds needed to be rebuilt. Humans took the lead in organizing the recovery efforts. They had experience with rebuilding after disasters and knew how to coordinate large projects. More importantly, they refused to become the new rulers of the galaxy. Instead, they helped establish the Free Worlds Alliance, a democratic federation where each species had an equal voice. The old Dominion territories were divided among their original inhabitants. Reparations were paid to species that had suffered. Under alien rule, Earth was rebuilt as a symbol of the new order. The planet that had been conquered first became the meeting place for the Galactic Council. Humans shared their knowledge freely, helping other species develop their own technology rather than depending on stolen devices. Tom Miller was honored as the hero who had broken the Empire, but he was not forgotten as a person. A monument on Earth showed him not as a warrior, but as a miner who had refused to give up hope. The inscription read, "He reminded us that we were human." The story ends 50 years later. An elderly Anna Cross stands before a group of young beings from different species, telling them about the old days when slavery existed in the galaxy. The children can barely believe such a time ever existed. Remember, she tells them, freedom is not free. It must be earned by each generation and defended by all who value it. In the distance, ships from 100 different worlds come and go from Earth's spaceport. The galaxy is free, and humanity has finally found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as liberators who proved that no one deserves to be enslaved. The Dominion Empire had burned, but from its ashes rose something better, a galaxy where all beings could live free. Asterisk.